All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict Show. Very excited. Yesterday, do you know yesterday somebody
Oh,
somebody asked me, I didn't know you guys are in different channels. Or I said, yeah, we do have a few channels.
David,
So,
you want to hear something really
sure.
cool? So, my husband Corey and I just started a channel, and if you would like to be part of this channel, you're totally welcome. On ETs and aliens, it's called. Get this. I thought this was a really funny play on
Yeah.
words. UFO Today. Like
That's
USA
it.
Today, UFO
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah, that is
Just
so
out
cool.
of curiosity, because I do think the UFO, that whole thing is more or less like the government being like, oh, you mean you want cheap and reasonable food and rent?
Yeah.
Pay attention to aliens instead.
Yeah.
Wait, guys, there's
Yeah.
aliens. So I do think that fundamentally it is being used as a distraction, but I do think there really is
That
truth
is-
to it.
that
I
is
really,
true. Yeah.
and so my husband is an aeronautics and aerospace expert, and he is a very big
So
skeptic.
good.
And I am a human behaviorist, and
Yeah.
I am a really big believer in UFOs.
Maybe one day we'll do a show on this one here for that.
Well, would you
What
like?
do you guys think?
Yeah.
Would you want to have a show on? I won't call it just UFOs, but I'll call it about other worldly beings out there.
Yeah.
So if you answer is yes, just type it in chat box. And if it is, we'll set it up one day because we have to do the research. At least for me, I can't just talk on top of my head. We'll be happy to do it. So anyway, we are very excited to be with you. Hope you had a good weekend. Enjoy it. Mine was very
eventful.
Let's not get but that's part of life. That's how life goes on. So
it is. It's part of life.
so remember to join us right after this at
immediately
after
on
Rumble. So we're
Yep.
going to be extending some conversations because there are some stuff going on. But today we're going to be focusing on one particular topic, which came a lot of surprising, to my knowledge at least. Nobody saw this coming. But on the other hand, you will say to yourself, oh, this is a calculated move. And this one has to do with the vice president, who, by the way, you don't hear about her anyway. She's a joke. The vice president criticizing Israel. I mean, come on. We all know what the game that is being played here. So this is what we're going to be talking about in general terms, of course. Then when we get on a Rumble, we're going to be addressing, I have some stuff to address about H group.
Oh yes.
HA.
Okay, gotcha.
HA group, because we're going to talk about this one here. So we will be detailing this here. Let me first say thank you to, look at this. And
it's Raphael.
Good to see you, Raphael.
It's good to see you.
And thank you so much for your super sticker. Truly appreciate it. So, well, let's get into this. Should we start with the video right away?
Absolutely. I think
Why don't we do that?
Absolutely right. Let us do
And by the way, guys, type in where you are joining us from. We greatly appreciate it.
All right. Let's start with this because this is, oh, hold on. I think I accidentally added. Sorry. I accidentally added. Let's see if I can remove it. Okay, there we go. Let's do it.
Given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire. For at least the next 6 weeks, which is what is currently on the table. This will get the hostages out and get a significant amount of aid in. This would allow us to build something more enduring, to ensure Israel is secure and to respect the right of the Palestinian people to dignity, freedom, and self-determination. Hamas claims it wants a ceasefire. Well, there is a deal on the table. Let's get a ceasefire. Let's reunite the hostages with their families, and let's provide immediate relief to the people of Gaza.
All right. Well, what do you think of that?
What do you guys think?
Wow.
To me, just nothing but a lip service. And second thing, it has to do with the time frame. And the time frame is 6 weeks. Why 6 weeks?
That's a very interesting
Yeah,
question. Why
It
6
has to
weeks?
do with our domestic politics.
Mhm.
Remember the upcoming Super Tuesday and also
Yeah.
the
That's
preparations
today.
for
Super Tuesday.
Super
Today.
Tuesday. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
for Super Tuesday, but
Yeah.
also what comes after Super Tuesday is the kickoff of.
Yeah.
So you can just see where the
Absolutely.
narrative. And the third question, which is an interesting question, which belongs to you, not to me. So
Mhm.
I don't take credit for something I didn't. Which when we were talking before we came into the studio.
Yeah.
You mentioned, how come it wasn't the president himself?
Right.
That's
right.
a good. That's your thinking.
Well, so
Why do you think that is?
all right. So here's the deal, right?
Yeah.
So the entire time, it really has felt like the United States was in control of this, on top
Mhm.
of it, right?
Mhm.
So the United States is the only country
That
to
can
vote
contr-
no,
Yeah.
that can control Israel.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing more and more is that it seems that the US actually isn't in
In
control. And this has little by little, more and more, the Biden administration, because this is so wildly unpopular here.
Yeah.
This conflict is wildly unpopular. There are a couple of like super propagandized holdouts who are like, oh yeah, I'm not going to say the whole argument, but you guys know what it is.
Yeah.
So now, instead of Biden coming out and saying this, because if Biden had come out and said it, it would have been taken very much more seriously, I think,
Seriously.
on the global stage.
Yeah.
But nobody respects Kamala Harris. Nobody does.
She's
And
a
if
joke.
she is, and if you
Yeah.
guys here in the United States, they don't put her on anything important. They don't put her on anything serious because her approval rating, I think, is maybe the lowest in history for vice presidents.
Well, she was never qualified for the position
Absolutely.
to begin with. Let's just
Absolutely.
be honest about it. Let me say quickly here, thank you to Sun Hook. Thank you.
Oh, thank
you so much
you.
for your super sticker. Truly appreciate it.
Yes.
And by the way, do you know that Raphael's been with us for almost
I
a
do.
year now? So thank you, Raphael, for your continued support. Truly, truly appreciate it. So yeah, what were you saying about the there is not a lot of respect for her because she's not qualified for the position.
Well, and not only that,
Oh.
both of our leading officials, both President Biden and Kamala Harris, seem to have trouble articulating in a very charismatic or coherent way. And so she also has a little bit of trouble with that, or maybe a lot of trouble with that. So they don't give her anything serious. So this is a really shocking thing to give her because it is actually very serious.
Yeah.
But it is, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, just my analysis, is that the reason that they gave it to her is because it is lip service. And because if Biden had come out and said it and then it didn't happen,
the optics of it will be, that's true.
So bad.
Yeah, that is true.
But the US has lost control completely of the situation.
Yeah. But also this one exposes the idea that who's really in charge here?
Absolutely.
Is it the US or is it Israel? And a lot of people now it's becoming evidence to them that is, as a matter of fact, Israel that is dictating the terms, not the US. So we are just sort of on the picture frame, if you will, is the US, but in reality, it is not. And this one now has exposed to the point, and we're going to detail more when we get on the Rumble, especially when it comes down to the Israel side. But this one also has to do, as I mentioned earlier, with the domestic politics, because we come into the election seasons and so forth. There are some polls that I took a look at. I mean, they are abysmal for the Democrats.
Oh, so bad.
It's just very, very bad.
So
We're
bad.
talking about in the 60s, dwindling down for the president. So, but all this is a reflection of the much bigger picture, and the much bigger picture is the global order.
Yeah.
So it will be fair to say that, in a sense that you're looking at what the EU is doing, what the US is doing. This coincides, of course, with what's going on right now in Beijing, with the two sessions, which there were over 3,000 politicians and journalists and so forth. They all gathered because the world will be watching what's going to be emanating from Beijing. There is one particular aspect that the US has already made it clear, that, for example, the Chinese EVs, electric vehicles, are a national security concern. What a ludicrous statement.
That is absolutely ludicrous. Yeah.
And to the point that you can just see where this is going. Where it's going, and you all know it's not a secret, is that we're having a hard time when it comes down to slowing down the progress of where China is going.
Well, and not only slowing down the progress of China, but there seems to be no concerted effort to actually build the United States back up, which I think is a very interesting choice, because we're looking at a situation where the United States appears to be looking to tear other countries down to keep them down, including China, and slow the rise in a sense. But there is no domestic will to, for example, increase the amount of engineers coming out of the United States. There's no domestic will to increase the quality of our public school systems, to increase. So there was a really fascinating research study that was done on geniuses. Right? Because we think of geniuses like they're like one in a million.
Yeah.
So they did this study, and when a child was young, under 2 years old, like 98% of them were geniuses. And then as they got older, it was less and less and less, to the time that they got to be, an adult, right? Leaving the school system. It was like some fraction of a percentage were still geniuses. And what the researchers said is that they credit that actually to the school system, because the school system sort of teaches that out of children. So if the United States really wanted to pick back up, because they're talking about bringing manufacturing back, but we know that's just for show.
We heard that
know
for
it's
so
just
many
for
times.
show, right?
It ain't gonna work.
Because and there's no real will to pull up the infrastructure to do that. Right? There's a little bit of it by bringing some manufacturing back, but it's really the technological manufacturing and the technological aspect of the manufacturing that we need to bring back. And there is no political will to do that. So for the people who are saying, well, the US isn't in decline, it's not in decline, look at foundationally where the money is being spent. And it's being taken away systematically from the school system, for example, which is where it should go.
Right. Instead of sending money
sending it to Ukraine, sending it to Israel, sending it to Taiwan,
and
all over the place. So instead of looking to tear another country down, build up back here.
It won't work. It's not gonna work because we kind of, to me, the way I look at it, we kind of past that mark now.
I think
it's
so
too
too.
late.
I think so too.
There is no. If you
I
have,
hope not. But
to do this, you're gonna have to revamp the entire system. And to revamp the entire system, you're gonna have to dig deeper into its foundations and to understand. I'll give you just quick example. When was the last time you heard of any politicians being held accountable for corruption?
Oh no, I never. Never really.
That's my point.
Because even if they are, it's like it pushes it way out.
That is true. That's my point.
And
this is why, if we are to build that infrastructure, you have first of all to fix those kind of issues first. Then, if there is a politician who gets into corruption, you put him or her in front of the public.
Absolutely.
And with the harsh sentences. For me, I will go as far as, I might sound heartless, but the end. You all know what I mean, right?
Sure.
Because that doesn't mean I'm heartless. I'm a forgiving guy, whatever. But for something like that, you send a message. Mark my words. The moment they take down one or two, everybody will.
Or even jail for life. Honestly,
they'll start to think.
If there's any, you're absolutely right. If there's any consequences whatsoever, I do think you're absolutely right.
But they won't do it because you're gonna have to. And this is one of the things that's gonna hinder any progress here. And this is why, just to tie it back to what we were mentioning earlier about the U.S. considering EVs as a national security.
Oh, insanity!
Which is insanity. So I was laughing when I read the statements from the White House regarding this. It's what it came to. What it came to is the idea of the inability, our inability, to really compete. And I'll use the term because there is no other way around it. We can compete with the Chinese in this case. I mean, to my knowledge, and I had yesterday a conversation with someone in Washington, D.C., and the idea now that Chinese are moving some electronic surveillance to space.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they already had that.
Well, no, this one now is going to go on a much larger scale.
Yeah.
And this one is tied also because what a lot of Americans do not know is that the Chinese and the Russians have decided to build a research lab on the surface of the moon.
Yeah.
The US never been on the moon to begin with. That's another conversation.
No, but it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Did the US actually go to the moon conversation?
Well, that's
It's
what I'm
very
thinking. How
interesting,
about
yeah.
if, you know, usually I don't talk much about, but we'll do a show
We'll do
on
it.
it.
We'll do it.
If you guys want us to do a show on it, just yes or no. Just put your answer in the chat box and we'll schedule it for next week. Whatever. But the point is because of the idea that the Chinese went ahead, as you know,
Yeah.
we banned them from accessing the ISS, the International Space Station.
Yeah, I do
We
remember.
did. We did. It was by an executive order
Yeah.
that Congress approved. The Chinese said, okay, if that is what you want to do, we're going to go ahead and build our own. And
Yeah.
what did we think? We thought that the Chinese were bluffing.
Yeah, and they were just going to give up.
Yeah, what happened
They
last year?
didn't.
They completed their ISS.
Yeah.
Their I'm sorry, not ISS, their Chinese space station.
Chinese
Because
space
it's not
station.
an international, it's
Yeah.
theirs. However, Chinese extended the invitation to other countries
Yeah.
to participate into this research lab. Well, so far you got the Chinese and the Russians. Russians have an extensive knowledge and expertise when it comes down to space.
Mhm.
And I can only imagine why China will have to move surveillance to the moon, let alone the resources that exist on the surface of that.
Yeah.
So the US basically, because that was the same argument we did against the Soviet Union back during the
Yeah.
space race.
Right.
Now we
During
have
the space race.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
now we have the space race with the Chinese.
Yeah.
So this is why when you hear statements, oh, it's a national security concern, whatever, it's nonsense.
Well, and is it so here's the reality of it, right?
Yeah.
So is China spying on the US? Yes. Is the US spying on China? Yes. Both things are true. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody's spying on everybody.
It's normal.
This is not like some crazy thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone's spying on each other.
Yeah.
The problem is when you have this sense of competition,
Yeah.
competition destroys countries. Because right now, instead of, and I think it's destroyed the United States. So instead of actually cooperating with China, with Russia, with all these other countries,
Yeah.
we decided, no, we're going to kick them out. And that was exactly something that you said has stuck with me this entire conflict.
I must have said something important.
You did. You said something very important. And that is, you said that when the US sanctioned Russia, they pushed it too far.
Too far, yeah.
And I absolutely believe that. And I've absolutely seen that over time, is that sanctioning of Russia was a bad idea because countries don't just sit back. And what did the US think was going to happen? They were like, well, maybe China would just give up. China has too many resources to just give up. That's not going to happen. And so since they're not going to give up, what were they going to go do? They were going to make their own.
That's true. And this is something we didn't calculate into that strategy.
That's crazy.
Well, it's because also is a reflection of where the mindset is as far as policymakers.
Absolutely.
To me, I won't call them policymakers. Those are amateurs. They are no statement per se, or individuals that carry weight when it comes down to understanding the implications of geopolitical decisions, because sanctions are a geopolitical decision, believe it or not.
Absolutely.
So they didn't think about it, and now we are seeing the consequences of it. And the consequences is you are noticing what other countries are doing.
Right. Well, and so I actually want to bring it back a little bit to what we're talking about, because that fits directly in line with what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So when the US more or less said, the US more or less has been pretending that it's been in charge this entire time. And I'm going to stick with my opinion on pretending that it's been in charge, because I think that fundamentally on the global stage, we look now like we actually weren't really in charge the entire time.
Yeah. I see your point.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I see your point, except that depends again on the time frame. How far are you going back?
I'm going back. Well, honestly, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's probably been true for, obviously much longer than this conflict, because this conflict has a very long history. But what do you think? How long has it been that way?
To me,
how long has the US not really been in charge?
It started from 82.
82. That's before I was born.
To me, that's my opinion. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well,
I'm
it's a
very
lot
interested.
because of what was taking place around the world, especially in West Africa, in West Asia or
Yeah.
Middle East, that is known. So, because in the 80s, what happened in the 80s? The Israelis went into Lebanon. And what happened with us? We got involved thinking that we can exert our power till we end up having the barracks bombed. And all
I
that's in
know.
86.
Oh,
And that sent a
that's so
chill
terrible.
as to the direction where this is going.
yeah.
And from that point forward, we started to think in terms of, oh, we are vulnerable indeed.
Mhm.
Of course, because we didn't understand the dynamics in that part of the world,
Yeah.
which is what's going on right now. And from that point forward, for me as an observer, I've been watching those trends. And when I end up going to the Middle East myself and be
Yeah.
on the ground, and I do speak the language and all that stuff, and converse with the locals there, there were some individuals inside the governments there that I had a conversation with.
Yeah.
And it became clear to me that's my time frame as to when it was.
Yeah.
And if I am to go with your statements, it makes sense. But
Yeah.
that's the form, in my opinion, that's where the time frame started. So now it's becoming more evident
Yeah.
than ever. And this is why you get now voices asking, why are the Europeans following blindly? Why is New Zealand as an example? Did you know that New Zealand now will be pushed or sucked into the orbit of AUKUS?
Man, and I really want to take a honeymoon to New Zealand.
I
really
know.
wanna
You
go.
think so?
I
so
really want to go.
even their lieutenant,
Oh.
his prime minister, the new prime minister, whatever. Mahuta was the foreign minister,
Mhm.
not the prime minister. I made a mistake last time, but it was the foreign minister. Mahuta was against that one.
Mhm.
It's because they have the doctrine of they don't want to have nukes on their weapons.
Yeah, sure.
Guess what AUKUS is focused on? In second, there are two pillars.
Mhm.
The second pillar for AUKUS
Yeah.
is based on nuclear. So
Oh,
all of a sudden
no.
now you're going to see New Zealanders.
Yeah.
I bet you, like one of the one individual from New Zealand mentioned sometimes that you're going to be seeing protests going on. So
I sure hope so. New Zealanders, please stand up.
you don't hear
Stand up
much
against
about
that,
New
yeah.
Zealand. Let alone the bigger problem for them.
What is the
Who's
bigger
their
problem?
bigger trading
Oh,
partner?
do they trade a lot with China?
Yes.
Oh man.
You saw what happened to
Yeah.
Australia.
Yeah.
Even
Oh yeah.
though
Oh yeah.
Canberra, the Australian government,
Yeah.
elbow is another weak noodle.
Yeah.
He's so weak. You see where the economy of Australia is right
Yeah.
now. And all this, because Australia was doing fine till we pushed it
Yeah.
to exert this kind of or issue this kind of statements challenging the human rights and all that in Xinjiang, which turns out to be a lie anyway.
Dude, human
Then we
rights
saw
is the hard.
so
hard sell
Australia
right
and
now.
right now China is giving an opportunity to New Zealand.
Mhm.
China did warn New Zealand, but
Yeah.
they're giving them an opportunity to think twice before they move forward.
Yeah.
Because all China needs to do, shut down the economy. That's
Yeah.
all they need to do. China does not need to fight any. And New Zealanders, when I say New Zealanders, I'm referring to the government.
Yeah.
They're almost like, well, are they blind to where are they being dragged into? Look at the Europeans. And this ties back to your earlier point as to the sanctions that we posed on Russia,
Such
how
a bad
now
idea.
it's
Yeah.
backfiring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at Germany, look at especially with what just came out. I'm sure you heard about what came out, that
Oh
secret
yeah.
recording
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the German military.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit more about that on a Rumble.
Yeah,
in
let me
addition to-
actually post for you guys the link for Rumble
For Rumble,
immediately
yeah.
after this.
So because
Yeah.
we're gonna be meeting there, and we'll
Yeah.
talk about few aspects here in addition to HA group
Yeah.
that I came across some info this past few days.
Yeah.
I didn't talk much about it. I wasn't much on a computer this past few days.
Well, sometimes that's really healthy. Like sometimes,
yeah, it
sometimes
was.
you need to do
Well,
that.
as long as you are not sucked into some other drama
Right. Of course. Of course.
or some
of
issue or
course.
whatever. But that's part of life. That's how life goes.
Yeah.
Because life is not a smooth ride, and it shouldn't be.
No.
Because if it is smooth ride, then you will never be put to test.
You'll never
That's my
learn
opinion,
anything.
yeah.
You'll
That's
never
my
grow
opinion.
anything.
So
Anyway.
that's what I say. So the idea of, yeah, you're absolutely correct about where things now between when it comes down to the US and Israel, and who's in charge here.
Who's in charge?
Really,
here?
really exposes now
Yeah.
that we have not been.
In charge.
So, and all this now, it gives you an idea. And I'm tying it to so many things because so many things are intertwined. I'll give you a quick example. You know who George Galloway?
Mhm. Oh yeah,
He just won the elections.
Yeah.
You know, won the election in Rochdale. You know,
Yeah.
landslide. You know.
Smart guy.
Yeah. Oh, George.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He is.
Smart
I've
guy.
been
Yeah,
aware
yeah.
of a guy for a long
Yeah.
time. His statements. When they interviewed him, the anchor from Sky News, whatever, keep telling him about, well, the Prime Minister Sunak, whatever, and George told him, who gives a damn about the Prime Minister? And rightly so. Who gives a damn about Sunak? Another week.
Okay. Do you want to hear the funniest thing? So I was, you know, in the internet has many treasures when it comes to like clips of things. There was a clip of Sunak, and he was using a hammer, but the caption was like, how out of touch could you be that you don't know how to use a hammer? Because he was hitting it with the side, like, you know, you use the hair, you use like the top of the hammer, right? And you just like hit a nail. And he took the side of it and he was like hitting it with the side of the hammer. And the lady was like, what? But nobody's gonna tell him that's not how you use a hammer.
Yeah.
But it was like, how out of touch could you be that you've never used a hammer before?
Yeah, it's clueless.
Right?
Weak. But anyway, just the idea of how now somebody like George Galloway is going to push back against those policies, because he showed.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Yes.
You need to have people like that,
Yeah,
that they can take stand, because enough is enough, and this stuff has to stop at some point. But the politicians are corrupted on both sides of the Atlantic. And this is what I'm saying. I am in favor of either put them for life if they get involved in corruption, or just put them to the end. You all know what I mean by that. Whatever way that the law will allow, whatever. So I won't feel bad. I won't feel sad about something like that, because corruption is you are playing with the livelihood of constituents of everybody else. So if you get involved in corruption, you should be held accountable forever.
Absolutely.
So that's the way I see it.
But the people in charge don't want to be held accountable, so they don't hold each other accountable.
Yeah. Well, that's why. Well, that's gives birth to how the system is dysfunctional.
Absolutely.
At its core.
Is dysfunctional.
So, by the way, before I forget, a lot of our viewers answered yes to the question of the UFO or whatever. So how about if we do this?
Okay.
Can we do it next week instead of?
Well, and also we have a whole new channel dedicated to UFOs.
Yeah, you can do it on that.
So let me put the link to that. So, David, how about you and I do one
for next week?
Channel
for next week.
We'll talk about it next week here. We will do one
first.
But go follow the UFO channel, because I'm going to convince David to do more of them with me on that channel, guys. So let him know that I get him on board.
Okay. So yeah, we'll do that. Thank you guys for answering this one. We really appreciate it. And we'll talk. Because remember, a lot of people do not know that when it comes down to space, geopolitics is involved.
Hugely so.
If you only go to the history of how it's all started, when the Soviet Union launched its first. So, and that's a conversation we'll have later on. So
okay, and I'll guys, if you can put the Rumble link, somebody asked for it. If you guys can put the Rumble link in the chat
box, that would be great. We'll greatly appreciate it. And remember to hit the like button, by the way. We truly appreciate you for doing that one. So the idea of how where Israel now is moving forward with this, I think, to me, I'm giving comparison now between the two main events. Okay. One of them is the U.S. sanctions on Russia, and second one is the Israel. What's the word I'm looking for? Campaign of whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
Both of them backfired on the initiator. So for the U.S., it backfired, but for the U.S., it dragged the EU with it. Yeah. For Israel now, he wanted to drag the U.S. in, and so far it's not succeeded, and that's what we will talk about when we get to Rumble about the HA group as to why that is. Israel is doing what it's doing. So, but it exposed how flawed the policies are, how the strategy that is ill-conceived before it was launched, because that's now is a reflection of how poorly managed the both in Tel Aviv and Washington, both of them. But at least this conflict here for the Israel one gives us an idea who's in charge.
Absolutely.
In the case of the
Absolutely.
Europe, it gives us an idea who's in charge also.
Yeah.
Is the US over Europe.
Yeah.
So it's very fascinating dynamics of how things are moving. And but for Israel, it's not going to end well. For the US, it's already moving in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
It's our country. We are concerned. I am concerned.
I'm concerned
I live
too.
here.
Deeply concerned.
And you start to have to think about options.
Well, yeah, I think we're
because
all
we
looking
can't,
at options.
because one thing you always do as an analyst, you always think of the possible scenarios that
Yeah.
far out.
Yeah.
You don't wait till
till it's on top of you already.
Exactly. It will be too late by then, because
Yeah.
your brain will be dealing with new changes into the landscape that you won't have the ability to.
Yeah.
You have to think clearly. So, and this is where I see the issue of Israel right now, that they didn't realize this is going to backfire on them. And it's already backfiring, because they want Netanyahu out. Israelis mature, they want him out.
Well, I don't know if this is out of self-preservation for himself.
Yeah.
I honestly don't actually know why he is continuing full steam ahead when pretty much the rest of the entire world is asking him to stop. It's very interesting because he must know this doesn't end well for him. He must know that on some level, but he just will not stop.
Well, there is one reason.
Okay.
One particular reason is for him to avoid jail for his corruption.
Yeah,
that's one of the main reasons why he's dragging this.
But he's just
because
kicking
if this
the can
ends,
down the road.
Huh?
He's just kicking the can down the road.
Well, because it's buying time.
Yeah.
Because if he ends this now,
if
he ends, this is why when Kamala Harris, the idiot VP, when she said that, well, now the deal is on the table. No, the deal is not on the table, not in favor of the other party as well.
Yeah.
So that's why they ain't gonna, the HA group ain't gonna go for it, because they're not dumb. They're smart enough to know. But they're saying this because they know, Washington and Tel Aviv knows that they have the PA, Palestinian Authority, in their pocket.
Yeah.
Well, ask anybody in the Middle East or West Asia. Ask anybody and tell them, which one would you support?
Yeah.
Will you support PA, Palestinian Authority, or would you support HA?
Yeah.
The group. Majority will tell you the HA group. It's because even within Palestine, the PA is limited.
Yeah.
But Washington and Tel Aviv are using the PA to justify whatever.
Yeah.
So when they say something like this, it's because they said, well, we had a talk with the PA. Mahmoud Abbas is another wet noodles. His guy, like, they playing him like a fiddle. So same one before him, Yasser Arafat, there was nothing but all it was is about ensuring the funding keeps coming. Then you have the other side of the argument. When I just saw this morning that Tony Blinken was meeting with the head of Qatar. Well, all Arab countries do is talk. Arab countries are so weak.
And he's been talking to them.
He's been talking forever.
Like, how long is he going to talk to them?
You're right.
What are they going to say?
And they repeated the same statement as far as what we call for ceasefire. It's nonsense. Ain't going to change anything till you put troops on the ground. But Arab leaders, that's not the people. Arab leaders are too weak because their concern is not about Palestine.
Yeah.
Their concern is about survival of their regimes.
Yeah, clearly.
It's all about that one.
There's nobody, honestly, in a sense.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll say this on Rumble. I'll say it on Rumble.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting to me that now is the narrative coming out of the Biden administration. Even if it's not coming from Biden specifically, it's coming out of the Biden administration, because it really does seem like it's just optics. But the problem is to say that the US doesn't really have power over Netanyahu. Who's giving them weapons? Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's impossible to go and say, because that's my take on what's happening here, is for the administration to say, well, we told them to stop. Yeah. Right? We told them ceasefire, but we can't shoot. We can't do anything about that. Who's giving them weapons
and money?
Yeah.
And this is why the statement of Kamala Harris is useless. It's lip service. I mean, we did some drop recently. We dropped some aid.
Well, but it's like
parachuted
yeah.
there. But how can
It's like
you
a
do that?
drop in a bucket.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
how can you do that when you are the one destroying the same
no,
people?
absolutely. No, it's
That's
both
just
sides.
like double standard.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
absolutely double standard.
Well, the
Absolutely
double-
both sides.
The double standard has become part of our policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we say one thing and do another.
Well,
This is why the rest of the world, how can you trust the US anymore?
so interestingly enough,
Yeah.
there is a history of this type of thing happening.
Mhm.
And that, so if you go and look at the financiers of World War II, for example, go
Mhm.
guys, take a deep dive and figure out who financed these wars. Because you look at war and you say, well, oh, it's just the country using its tax dollars to do that.
No, no.
That's not true. Like, yes, there are some tax dollars used, absolutely. But go look at who finances wars, because they're financed, and look at, are they only financing one side, or
Or
do they
both,
happen
yeah.
to be financing both sides?
Well, I'll give you two examples. I have two examples that I can think of. One of them is World War II.
Well, absolutely. World War
Who
II.
financed the Germans?
Absolutely.
That's one. Second one, I'll take you back to why I said, this is why I said things changed for the US in the 80s.
Yeah.
Why the 80s? What happened in the 80s, guys, in the Middle East? Yeah, if you can
Okay.
type in that
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
chat box.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm
Yeah.
curious.
What happened in the
Middle East.
80s? Major events.
Yeah.
So let me just see before I'll talk.
Okay.
Let
Okay.
me see
Because
if
I'm very interested, because fundamentally, there's now I have a love and not love relationship with the internet. One, because I spend too much time on the internet. But the internet has made all of this information accessible if you know where to look.
Yeah. Well, somebody got it. Karakula got it. You got it. It was the Iran-Iraq War. What happened in the 80s?
Yeah.
Well, and what we do? What did we do?
Yeah.
We financed both.
Yeah.
We provided the Iraqis, but how did we do it with the Iranians? Is through Ali at the time, Oliver
Yeah.
North. So it's called when Reagan allowed the transfer.
Oh,
of-
is that right?
That's what it
That's
was.
where
That's what it was.
Yeah, you're absolutely
That's
right.
what it was.
You're absolutely right.
So that's why I said in history there
World
are
famous quote.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, Reagan
famous
later
lie.
on came and apologized, and of course, well, whatever.
My
but-
heart
yeah, no,
believes that it's true,
no.
but
no.
the facts
Say
say that
something,
I'm
yeah.
wrong.
And
Well,
they,
homie, your heart's wrong.
You're right.
Like,
and they had to push Oliver North, Colonel Oliver
Yeah.
North under the bus at the time, is because that money they were getting for the weapons that we sent to Iran were sent to Sandinistas in Latin America.
yeah.
My point in this, just to highlight to you, in conjunction with what you said, that yeah, they are behind the scenes financier,
Yeah.
and it's not going to be just one side.
No.
I'll give you another example, and this example is recent as of last week.
Mhm.
What happened in Moldova?
Oh,
Transnistria.
yeah.
Transnistria is a separated
Yeah.
region. I know some have made the argument, well, Dr. O is always contradicting himself by, he said this about this country, but not Taiwan. Well, hold on a second. Taiwan is not an independent
Yeah.
state. Taiwan is part of China. Transnistria
Mhm.
is a separatist region that is independent from Moldova.
Yeah.
That is where. And now you're seeing all of a sudden the Moldovan government is coming down with economic pressure
Yeah.
on Transnistria, to the point that Transnistria now is asking Russia to come for help.
Wow.
Why?
Yeah.
Because most of the population in Transnistria
Yeah.
are Russians.
A Russian.
It's the same scenario that took place in Crimea.
Yeah.
So you can see, this is why it's always fascinating to take a look at history.
Yeah.
So, but just to go back to your point earlier about who financed it, go guys and check out World War II. Really,
yeah.
who financed it? You will be surprised.
You will be super
Yeah,
surprised.
especially once you find out the names of the families that have funded that
I think
stuff.
you
So-
may be less. I think you may not be surprised, but
Surprised,
surprised
but
that
you'll-
it
yeah.
happens.
So, and that's just we did it. That's why
Yeah.
the reason why we create conflicts, because we will, in the case of the Iran-Iraq war,
Yeah.
we did the same thing because we provided both. We provided weapons to both sides.
Yeah.
I was in Baghdad. I was on the ground where I saw, literally, it's very. I don't know if I should even disclose this one here or not. It's not about YouTube, whatever. It's just how.
Well, then don't. If
it's very sad.
Yeah, if
it's very sad. Very, very sad.
Well, maybe, but do it in terms that YouTube will not flag us.
No, it won't. It just it was basically on a square downtown. The whole area. What's on the ground? Skulls.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So it was one area there because that was where the war took place between them.
You know,
and what the Iraqi did at the time, but we were providing weapons and all, both sides. We did for Iran, even though there was no diplomatic ties with Iran and so forth, and yet we did it behind the scenes. Mark my word on this. At this time of this, there is a conversation behind the scenes.
Oh yeah,
that goes with both Iran and Russia.
Yeah, I believe
despite what you see.
Yeah.
Or what you hear from, of course, you can't trust what CNN is saying.
No.
You can't trust what Fox and MSNBC and all those are, if you guys watch that stuff, if you're an American watching that, just turn it off. It's your decision, of course. But just to highlight to you, that is where the indication of, there's always somebody who will benefit from conflicts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting. So, my husband sent me a kind of a funny, I guess like a TikTok or something. I might post it on our locals page. But basically it was like, whenever there's a crisis in the United States, let's just go attack the Middle East.
Yeah. Well, and also because,
geez, dude,
but there is also a reason for why that is.
Yeah.
Because you ask yourself, why they won't go to Latin America?
That's a great
question.
Why
they won't go to Africa?
Right.
Why they won't go to even Asia, to certain areas of South China Sea and all that?
Yeah, it happens to be centered in one part of the world.
And all that centers around the one particular commodity.
Yeah, oil.
That's the
absolutely.
reason. That is the reason.
Oil and control of it.
Well, because remember what the even though I have no what's the word I'm looking for? I drew a blank on
issue.
No, it's not the issue. Is I never I draw a blank on this.
That's okay.
It's because it might be a harsh word, but usually I don't like to be Henry Kissinger when he said when he said who controls food, controls people, who controls oil,
controls the world.
That is
it's absolutely
true. So this is why the Middle East or West Asia will always remain into that way. I mean, we all know the history of Kissinger, the horrible things he did in Laos and Cambodia. I mean, how can we ever forget? And we shouldn't forget that kind of stuff. You know, there are those who say, well, forgiveness and all that stuff. Well, to a degree. But if you are intended on a really like what's going on right now, when you start to do things intentionally, there is no forgiveness part, because those generations will never forget. Do you think now that the kids in Palestine is gonna forgive?
Never forget. You know, and it's interesting that you bring up Kissinger, because to me it was, because now years later all of these things came out about Kissinger, right?
Oh yeah.
All of the hidden roles that he played in the government. So to be clear, Kissinger is not an elected official, right? Kissinger was not the president of the United States. Kissinger was not an elected official. He was not somebody that we, the people, I mean, I was not here yet.
I know what you mean.
We, the people overall, he was not somebody that we put in power. But as it turns out, he played a bigger role in shaping our geopolitics and causing all of these things than the people who were elected at the time. And he bridged the gap between administrations. He was there over multiple administrations, guiding the hand from behind. And how many Kissingers exist right now that we don't know about? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, for him, it was because also, remember, he was advocating for the interest of Israel. He's a Jew no, nothing against it. It's just the idea of those policies were in favor of Israel because they did. I forgot what it was exactly. It was one particular incident where it really was as clear as daylight.
Yeah.
How it undermines the Palestinians in favor of Israel.
Well, and here's the thing. I believe in love and fairness and equality for everybody. And you guys can call me flowery all you want, but I believe in peace very strongly. I believe that humanity needs to evolve, and that we need to find peace and togetherness for each other.
Well,
we are all neighbors.
There is right now some sort of, if you think I've been reading some stuff, and there is some sort of like awakening, if I may use the term. It's really very slow, but some people are starting to really take time and listen to their inner voice. It's like something doesn't make sense. And with all the events that's taking place, this is why we always say geopolitics. And what's going on with our daily life, there is a link.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so how far this awakening is going to materialize, I don't know. How long will it take? I don't know. But when you start having somebody like, for example, George Galloway get to the position like that, we need about more of George Galloways in the different countries.
Absolutely.
And that's when you start to see people will start to think about the idea of where is this world headed. It's because even now, you think about it from a religious perspective as an example.
Sure.
A lot of people are questioning.
Oh, absolutely.
Are questioning certain things.
Yes.
I'm one of those.
I'm
one of those. I've been the last few years. I've been questioning certain things that people who knew me for 50 years or so, they will be shocked to know how. Well, because you evolve in your thinking.
You evolve,
and if you don't ask questions that matter, then what are you doing here? So, and this is by the way, guys, the whole idea of why also we decided to launch this channel.
Absolutely.
I never said this before, but
I love that you said that. So I too will talk maybe more about this on Rumble in a few minutes.
We'll do that.
But I was not raised by my parents in a particular religion, but I went to a school that was a specific religion. And it was very interesting because the amount of, so it was an all-girls school. And the amount of girls who came in that particular religion and the amount that left no longer being that religion, because there is like a mass questioning. And to me, I'm deeply spiritual. It's very, very, very important to me. I'm deeply, deeply spiritual. And that connection is something that I fostered and questioned and sought my own relationship with my spirituality instead of having somebody else tell me, dictate what's true and what's not. And fundamentally, I think you're right. That's the question is, what are we doing here? Is it just to sit and have somebody else tell us what to do?
No, it's also because historically it's always been something that human nature, we have to center around, And by the way, Muslim revert, I did read your comment there. Yes, the Vatican is at the heart of it. As a matter of fact, now there are documents coming out as far as the role the Vatican played in the collapse of the Soviet Union. John Paul II, which I had a chance, by the way, to go to one of his first churches he used to in Warsaw. Very small place. I remember I was passing through and stayed in Warsaw for 48 hours. It was work related at that time, and the embassy driver, when he picked me up, he said, "By the way, Mr. O, see that building there? See, that's where John Paul II." Well, whoever will think that John Paul will get in. He was a nice man, this and whatever. But behind the scenes, the Vatican was involved in some really dark secrets that if they come out, a lot of people will be shaking their. And again, this is no offense to Catholics,
absolutely,
we respect
absolutely.
their religion, whatever. All we're saying is
all religions are expected.
No exception. So
absolutely.
It's just for us. We want you to know where we're coming from. We're coming from the idea of stating the fact as they are.
Yeah.
but not passing on a judgment.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
for me, I became aware of the dark sides of the Vatican
Oh yeah.
a few years
Oh,
ago,
yeah. Crazy
especially when
stuff.
I was in Washington,
Yeah.
and I was like, "What?" We'll leave it at that.
Crazy stuff.
We'll leave it at
Crazy
that.
stuff.
The one thing you can think of is that, or not think of, but to share with you is that the Vatican collects about $1 billion a year in you
Well,
know.
and aren't they the largest landholder
It
or
is,
something
it is.
also?
Why will the Vatican needs all that kind of money for? If there are,
Power.
yeah, I know, yeah, it's
for
the idea of
power,
a man of God. Why would a man
power
of
and
God needs to have that?
influence.
But yeah,
Okay.
just to tie it back to our point, as far as with all these centers around, is the idea that you start to ask yourself the question is, what are you doing here? Because
Yeah.
your when I say yours, your, mine also, hers, ours, our existence is not random. There is no such thing as randomness, I believe.
Yeah. Me too.
We all brought in here for some whatever, however this design was to be. Now that design, you can call it God, you can call it divine power, you can call it whatever,
Yeah.
whatever suits your taste. You can use the term,
Yeah.
and it's just the idea of it has to be a far bigger role than just waking up, eating lunch or breakfast or whatever that is, and sleep. And,
You know what, David? It's actually really interesting that you bring this up, because I think that the biggest form of control that we have in this world is for people to think that that's all life actually is.
Well, because
Do you know what I
they
mean?
push for that. I've heard it when I was a kid. I've
Yeah.
heard that your reason for existence is to worship God.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say, I don't want to say that word here.
There are many ways to do that.
Yeah,
There are
yeah.
many ways to do that. As many
So-
ways as there are people,
That is
there
true.
are to do that.
That is
And
true.
so it's interesting to me that, you know, there really is a crack in the matrix, or whatever it is you want to call it.
Yeah.
There's a crack in the narrative where we were all promised this really great life if we follow this system, right?
Yeah.
Just get good grades, go to college, get a good job, and you'll be happy and satisfied, and everything will be roses and sunshine, and you'll be able to buy a house and have 2.5 children, and whatever that is in your culture, because every culture sort of has that, like, you know, this is the thing you should be in life, right?
Yeah.
And then we got there and we said, this cannot be all there is.
No.
And not only that,
Yeah.
you can't even have that. So something is stuck with me since I heard it. And it was Nikki Haley talking about the age of Social Security going up, right?
That
like,
idiot. You know, she wants a war with China. I just don't get it. Well, she doesn't even understand. She doesn't understand the implication of a military conflict with China.
To be honest, I sort of sometimes think she's just saying things to be hyperbolic. Like, that's my opinion.
Yeah,
but
she
just
doesn't-
saying
she
stuff to be
has no
hyperbolic. I
clue.
mean, oh my God. But anyway, so
Yeah.
she was talking about raising the age for Social Security. Okay. And here's the reality. You're not going to get millennials and younger generations to work till they're dead. You're not going to do it.
Well, look what happened in France. They wanted to increase it by 2 years.
Yeah.
And look how the country went down into demonstrations all over. Yeah,
You're not going to get people to work for the rest of their life. You're just not gonna, because it's not worth it. I mean, what if your work particularly is not meaningful, which most people say their work is not meaningful. If your work is not meaningful, you do not feel like what you are dedicating your life to matters.
Yeah.
I have a very close friend who has been at her job for 10 years. Okay. 10 years at this job. No one even said anything to her on her 10-year anniversary. Nobody congratulated her. Nobody said thank you.
Wow.
Nothing. 10 years at this job.
Yeah.
And so how do you get people to dedicate the lion's share of their lives? Because the only other thing that you spend more time doing is sleeping.
Do you want to know how many years we sleep?
How much? It's like 6. No, it's a third of our lives or something, right?
No. 10 years.
10 years. Jeez,
10 years is spent in our sleep. just sleeping. So it's just like, yeah, because as we move forward in life, you start
Yeah.
to really ask questions, and some people get sucked into that so-called religion, so-called whatever. But a religion, and again,
Yeah.
I do personally, I speak for myself, I do respect all religions,
Absolutely, I
whatever.
do too.
But I
too.
do also know for a fact that religion is a man-made, and anything man-made is subject to fallibility,
subject to human fallibility. Yes.
Simple as that. So now you can call it God or whatever, however you perceive God to be. But to me, it was like, well, yeah, again, if this God, however God is, how come God will allow this suffering to take place? That's something that I found it very, very
something
ironic.
Worth really exploring.
Yeah.
Because instead of just shutting down and being like, well, all of this is stupid and I'm not going to do it, I think it's worth really exploring what your own spirituality is, what your own relationship is with that, because everyone's relationship is different. Even inside of the same religion, many people have very different experiences. And so instead of trying to lump everyone in one chunk, I think it's actually important to embrace that uniqueness, especially in this area. Everyone has a unique life experience.
But also, if you think about it from a political perspective, governments also find out a segue into using a religion. Because remember, for us here in America, what do we say? How our so-called president, doesn't matter which president, how did he end their speech?
Yeah. To God.
May God,
whatever, and God we trust. Yeah, absolutely.
It's because a religion tends to play on the emotions of the masses, and I know this is a conversation for another day. It just came up into this, and we wanted.
I like this conversation, to be honest.
Well, we can have it on the locals.
Yeah.
How about we do that? See, locals will be the perfect location.
Yeah.
So locals is location would be perfect platform for something like that, because.
I love it.
Unrestricted. You can talk about all this.
And let me see if I can put the link to our locals, guys. We are building our community on locals.
And thank you guys for those who are supporting us on locals. We really want you to know how much we appreciate it. So we don't take your support for granted. We want you to know.
Well, your support is what allows us to do this show. You know,
I agree with you. We don't have backers here, so
it's what allows.
So we will
us
greatly
to
appreciate you guys if you support the channel.
Okay, let me see. Locals. Bam, give that to you guys if you want to check it out. Also on locals, David, I want to dive into the fact that China is buying more gold than anybody else.
Whoa.
So there are a couple of big things. One we're about to talk about on Rumble, and that is the wealth transfer outside of the United States right now.
Yeah, which by the way, the U.S. government is not disclosing to us.
Yeah, they're not talking about this. But because of what's happened with the US, and Janet Yellen just pushed for this too. I mean, this is a bad call. I think it was very short-sighted of them, but because what they're trying to do is take the frozen Russian assets and give it to Ukraine. Turns out a bunch of countries saw that as a big red flag and said, we're going to pull our golden assets out of the United States now.
Before too late.
Before it's too late. Before all of a sudden their country is sanctioned also. So that's a huge deal. And as the wealth and as the gold, because one of the biggest leverage points that the United States has on other countries is the fact that their gold is here. And is the fact that their assets are here. Well, what happens the moment that there is no leverage anymore? And so I think the monetary policy of the United States is wildly short-sighted.
Well, it's always been short-sighted. The U.S. hasn't had any strategy for the last 34 years. All right, guys. Well, we look forward to seeing you right after this on a Rumble. And as always, prepare yourself for changing world order. See you soon. Bye-bye.